Hello and welcome to Mirror Fighting One to Watch with me, Rich Jones. This is the latest in a number of new shows and podcasts we've launched here at Mirror Fighting, and in this series we'll be looking to bring you the inside track on some of the rising stars of the boxing world and tell their stories. Hopefully we'll be getting to hear a lot more from these guys in years to come as they rise through the ranks and make their way in the sport. Today's guest, well, it's cliched, but it's safe to say that boxing changed Derrick Osaze's life as he turned to the sport as a teenager, having been expelled from school more times than he can remember. After winning Ultimate Boxer 3 last year, the middleweight is on track for an excellent career. So I spoke to the punching preacher about faith, family, and his journey so far. He really is a fascinating character. He's had an unbelievable journey so far, and he's a really interesting guy. Really enjoyed this interview, so let's get on to it, and hopefully you'll enjoy hearing from him and getting to know him a bit better. Yes, joined now by Derrick Osaze. Derrick, just wanted to sort of go from the very start, really. Born and raised in Peckham, was it? And then when did it all start, the boxing journey for you?
So for me, boxing just started, age 15? So I was about year 10, going into year 11, and basically just started boxing as a way to keep out of trouble. I was, a very energetic individual growing up. Loved my sports, played for my school football team, rugby, basketball. But I suffered with anger management issues. So I realized, and a lot of people around me realized that, those sports probably weren't the best sports for me to channel my extra energy, if you want to call it that. So a friend recommended boxing to me. And boxing is always something I've grown up watching, my family. And it's always a sport I was, keen on trying if I ever got the opportunity. So I thought, this may be a great way to sort of kind of, channel my aggression or so per se, because I was getting into a bit of trouble within sports, especially football. A lot of yellow cards, red cards, disciplinary. So just found a local boxing gym, and the rest was history. So yeah, started off just to keep out of trouble, then became a hobby, became a passion of mine. Then now it's a lifestyle because I'm a pro boxer. So yeah, that's the story really.
Yeah, in terms of, you say, sort of it kept you out of trouble. I mean, how did it change things for you? Was it pretty instant there? As soon as you sort of fell in love with boxing, it gave you something to focus on? Like, just how did it change things really? Why did things change when you sort of got in the boxing gym?
I think for me, the biggest thing is that I learned from boxing, and probably one of the biggest game changers was self-discipline. It's one thing to be disciplined, in terms of your commitment to the sport. Boxing is one of those sports that you can't have one foot in and one foot out. You have to be completely committed. So it's one thing being disciplined to be able to attend training, to stay disciplined with your diet, to stay disciplined with getting your runs done outside of training. But also the self-discipline that required to, be able to compete in the ring. Contrary to public belief, boxing is not all about just going in there and just throwing loads of punches. You have to be disciplined and knowing when to attack, knowing when to defend, and being able to stay calm. So I think for me, that was like a transferable skill that I learned. I'd say I homed in quite a lot in the boxing gym, and it sort of kind of helped me to be disciplined in every area of my life in terms of education and whatnot. And I think it just made me a much more composed, calm individual. I can't place enough emphasis on, how amazing the sport of boxing is in terms of helping people sort of kind of turn their life around. So for me, I think, self-discipline was probably one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest transferable skills that sort of kind of had a knock-on effect in a positive way in other areas of my life.
So, and you mentioned education as well, and I know you sort of went on to sort of go to university. I guess that must have been a pretty big deal from where you were, being in a lot of trouble before you started boxing.
For me personally, I grew up in a household where education was placed at utmost high importance. I was number 5 out of 6 siblings. So I was the 5th one to go to uni. All my siblings before me had gone to uni and graduated. So for me, maybe coming out of the area, it was seen as something that was quite different. But in my household and a lot of my friends and family, it was pretty much standard, getting an education and going to university. Of course, at some point during my school time, that probably seemed unlikely. But still to this day, I don't know how many times I got excluded from school from year 1 till about year 10. the ones I can remember, I've counted about 16 or 17 times. So
Yeah.
I really, like, I had no business finishing school. So for me to even finish school, get my GCSEs, my A levels, going to university, which what brought me to Nottingham, where I'm based now. I think is nothing short of, a bit of a testimony. But for me, like I said, education was very important in my household, and I felt like getting the education was sort of kind of like my ticket to sort of kind of being able to focus on boxing full time. So knowing that I would like to think of my university degrees as a backup plan, but it's something that, that's in the locker if ever needed. So yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that your family sort of placed obviously a lot of importance on your education and stuff like that. So what does the family make of when you said you were becoming a professional boxer? What did they make of it?
Oh man, I remember my mum's first reaction was, "What about your face? What's gonna happen to your face, etc." My dad, obviously, like I said, I got into quite a bit of trouble in school. A lot of it was for fighting. So the idea of my dad, of me, who had been getting in trouble for fighting, now going to a boxing gym, just didn't make sense. He was scared that it would make me more aggressive and probably make me get into a lot more fights, which I guess is understandable. Um, he was also a bit scared that I was sort of kind of get into fights with my siblings, and if I was a trained boxer, then that wouldn't be good. So at the beginning, they weren't too keen on it, if I'm being honest. But over time, I think not only have they come to see the massive positive impact it's had on my life, but they've also seen just how serious I take the sport and how dedicated I am. So they're probably the most supportive people in my career now in terms of my family. So it's cool. But yeah, at the beginning they weren't too keen on it. But I think in terms of the reasons why, it's probably the more general reasons why any family member would be worried about their child or a loved one going into a sport like boxing, because it is a dangerous sport. I ended up having my first amateur fight when I came to university at age 19, and I didn't even tell my parents that I started boxing again. I literally just sent my dad a picture of after my first amateur win. And I remember his reaction being like, "Since when did we start boxing again?" So it was kind of one of those things that I was a little bit stubborn, but in every positive way possible. That I knew how much the sport meant to me, and I was just so determined to see it through. And I think they've seen that and they support that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you had your first sort of amateur bout back when you were at university, and it seems like you sort of stepped up at university. That's quite an unusual route in a lot of ways. It's not really much associated with boxers at the university boxing.
Yeah.
You won Bucks Nationals and stuff like that, did you? Is that right?
Yeah. So for me, although I was already sparring and I had my amateur card when I started age 15, but that was just before year 11, just before my GCSEs. And I think it was just very hard to balance, obviously preparing for my exams and training. So at the time where I was ready to fight, that was a time where my exams came up. So it was sort of kind of a thing of where, like, I'd go straight from school straight to training. I'd get home at like 9, 10 p.m. So I wasn't getting any work done. So it was going to have a detrimental effect on my education. So it was hard to sort of commit to it. Same story through college and doing my A-levels. So I always knew when I got to uni, I'd have a bit more time on my hands. I'd be able to manage my time more effectively. So I'd always commit to boxing. The first way, in terms of when I came to Nottingham, I initially didn't go through the university route, boxing route. At the time, the boxing wasn't very established in the university that I was at, Nottingham Trent. In terms of competing, it was more of a thing. They just met up a couple of times a week, they trained. There was a much bigger emphasis placed on the social aspects of the society. And that just didn't sit well with me. So I sort of kind of like just went and found an amateur club and done my own thing for a couple of years. The first club I started at was Phoenix ABC. I think same club that Carl Froch came up at. And then, so in my third year of uni and my master's year, that's when I went and competed on behalf of the uni in the British Nationals, and I won it twice. So after that, it was kind of good because it sort of kind of opened the way for boxing to be taken seriously as a sport and not in Nottingham Trent. Because I literally just told them, look, I'm going to this tournament, and whether you guys support me or not, won it the first year. Then after that, they started to take a bit more notice. And I think since then, it's strived and gone from strength to strength. That they actually have an active coach and they're competing now, which is good. But yeah, I just found that it was a bit easier for me balancing it, with education and whatnot. And I felt like, when you're moving out of home, new city, new environment, you're kind of in your own element. So it was something that I took quite in my stride, to be honest.
And was it around that time that because you boxed for, or you reached out to box for Nigeria, didn't you? What was the story behind that? Was that around a similar time that you had a bit of, involvement with the Nigeria team and stuff like that?
Yeah, it was, because I think I won my first national title with the Bucks in 2015. I won the second one in 2016. So I think it was round about the first time that I had contact with them would be, I think, towards summertime in 2015. The All Africa Games, which was taking place in, I think, Brazil and Congo at the time, in September 2015 was coming up. And they initially invited me to come out there for camp. They were going to put on a special camp for myself and another few other boxers who of Nigerian descent who were coming from America. But that didn't materialize just due to the fact of, which I expected, that they already had their team set for that time. So they said that they would keep my name on record for the Olympic qualifiers. And they actually did get in contact for me about the prospect of me coming to camp to sort of kind of basically have a camp with the squad to attempt to qualify via the African qualifiers. Just unfortunately, it just came at the wrong time for me. I'd come off the back of the injury. So at the time, I was about maybe 40-50%. Balancing that at the same time as trying to get through my masters. I couldn't have gone there given a good account of myself, just based on it wouldn't have been 100% version of me. So it's an opportunity that unfortunately I had to pass on. So to be fair, but I look back at it with no regrets. You could always think, oh, what if I'd went? Who knows? But at the end of the day, it was nice to even sort of kind of even have that opportunity to be able to go. Also at that time, I was training with England a little bit as well, but sort of kind of missed the opportunity to secure a spot because of injury. I experienced a lot of injuries in my last 2 seasons as an amateur. So that was the Olympic story. But like I said, it's something I don't look back with regret. Do you know what I mean? At the time, it just wasn't the right time.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the injuries and stuff like that, and you had, like I say, you had a couple of bad years with injury and stuff, didn't you? And was that something that sort of influenced you turning professional when you did, and sort of making a real go of it?
Yeah, the injuries was one thing, because it just seemed like they came up at the wrong time. It was always like, I think there was 2 or 3, or maybe 4 consecutive championships where I would get an injury literally just before. I think. So by then, I think I was getting a bit bored of amateur boxing. I felt like my style didn't suit amateur boxing, even though I didn't do bad at it. I felt like I favoured the longer rounds, the 3-round sprint. I didn't like the type of the type of style that amateur boxing made me box, which I don't think is my natural style, which is more like a sprint. You know what I mean? I like to think I'm an aggressive, fast-paced boxer, but at the same time, I like where I can, adapt to what's in front of me and whatnot, and know when to fight, know when to box, know when to pick up the pace. So I think when you put everything together, I was getting bored of the amateurs, the injuries and stuff. So it was in the back of my mind that in the last season or so that I was kind of getting enticed by the program. I was training. My coach, Brian Brad, is my current coach now. I started training with him in November 2015. So around about the last about 2 years of my amateur career. And obviously he was training Echo Esseman at the time, who's my current stable mate. He had just turned over in 2016. He had been a pro himself. So yeah, it was almost like I felt like there was a lot of dangled carrots in front of me. So at the time, when I went into the last ABAs, that was my first. I went into the first round of the ABAs not having boxed for a year and a half. It was obviously the elites, and Of course, I said that some of the best boxers in the country. I didn't get the result in the first round, and after that, I just thought, you know what, I need to go pro. And that was even at the time where, even after that loss, I'd still been called up to a few England camps. But still, I just felt like the pro game was where I wanted to go. So yeah, so I think a combination of everything really.
Yeah, a lot of sort of dangled carrots, and it's coming together now. But I imagine a pretty tough slog the first few professional fights. Sort of, you know, it can be a slow start. I imagine. What were the early sort of first few fights like? What was it like when you first turned pro? Was it a bit of a challenge, a bit tough?
Um, for me, in terms of, I think, training wise, fight wise, I wouldn't say it was tough. I'd say it was challenging, but I think those are elements where I adapted to quite well, because I'd already been training with my coach Barrington Brown and Mark Howe for the last 2 years or so of my amateur career. I was already training at a higher intensity as an amateur. So sort of kind of transitioning into the pros, I don't think that was extremely difficult. It was challenging. I think the most challenging element of my pro career at the beginning, which the side that they don't really talk about enough, is the boxing business side. It's the business side, things like selling tickets, sponsorship, all that stuff. That was probably the most stressful element of the beginning of my pro career. And I think most boxers will have something to say about that as well. And I feel like it's a part of the sport that it's not spoken enough about. But it's the harsh realities of, the business side of boxing is probably not the most favourable area of boxing. But I'd say that was more the side that sort of kind of I began to learn a lot fast. You know what I mean? Because you have no choice. But in terms of training, adapting to the training and stuff, that was pretty much cool. It was challenging, but it wasn't like a massive, I don't want to do this, you get what I mean? So I'd say more the business side of boxing, tickets, etc. That was probably the biggest headache early in my pro career.
Yeah, and then Ultimate Boxer came along. Obviously quite a new thing. Well, still quite a new thing, but
yeah.
I think it was the second one. Something a bit new. Just tell us about that night from the start. I mean, what were the thoughts going into it? Obviously, you entered it. Was it always, were you always going to enter it were there any doubts about whether it was the right decision, a bit of a risk? And then just tell us about that night and how it unfolded.
So it was the third edition of Boxer. I still remember the day my manager rang me and basically said, look, this opportunity's come up. For Boxer, I'd already heard about the tournament from when they first had done the first one. And I always said that if I ever got an opportunity to enter a tournament like that, especially because I grew up like watching prize writers, I said, yeah, no brainer. It was probably the easiest, quickest decision I've ever made in my life. When the manager called me and said, look, this opportunity came up, I said, yeah, take it. I at that moment in time when I said yes, I didn't even know who was in the tournament. I didn't know what other boxers, records, etc. I literally didn't find out probably up until maybe like 2 months after agreeing to be in it, when I went for the first media day. And I got there and I realized, okay, I know this guy, I've sparred with this guy, but I really wasn't bothered. And I think going into the tournament, there was, I think, an insane level of confidence for someone with my experience coming into that tournament. Do you know what I mean? I was only, 6 fights in. There was guys in there who were 10, 12 fights in, Southern Area champions, do you know what I mean? English title challengers, but I was just always so extremely confident that, I wasn't coming out of that tournament nothing short of, winning the whole thing. My team was confident, my family, people closest to me were confident. So going in there, I think I was a bit of an underdog or a dark horse or whatever they want to call it, but never in my mind did I ever look at myself as an underdog or dark horse. So I kind of knew the route as well. I knew that I'd probably have the toughest run to the final. I knew that if I was going to win it, I was probably going to box the two other best boxers, three other best boxers in the tournament. And I think I did. I think Kieran Conway, Grant Dennis, and probably Taylor, other than myself, were probably the next three best boxers. But yeah, like it was just one fight at a time, round at a time, and going in there was literally just making it as uncomfortable for my opponents as possible. the whole game plan was, work rate, starting fast in the front, but it's only 3 rounds. You ain't got time to implement a game plan. Like most pros take 3 rounds to warm up. So literally, it was sort of kind of having to revert back to the old amateur style and just sort of kind of aggression and pressure. Do you know what I mean? And so my thing was literally after the first round, you shouldn't really want to be in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was sort of what I was going for. So in terms of like, was it a boxing masterclass? No. Did I show my full level of skill and ability? No. Like if you ask me now, do I even look back and watch those fights? Maybe sometimes, but do I look back at it from a technical point of view? No, because at the end of the day, I knew that that's just what I needed. I boxed how I needed to box just to win. But in terms of technically, I don't take away anything from that fight. Like, I done this amazing. It was just literally just go out there and do what you need to do to win. But yeah, like it was an amazing achievement. Obviously, it's something that will go long down in probably one of my fondest memories in boxing. But yeah, it's a highlight of my career. And I say specifically a highlight because I don't want it to be the highlight. So it's kind of happened. That's what it is. I want to move on from it and just kick on. Go on to bigger and better things. So I believe that the tournament was a great stepping stone. So yeah.
Yeah, and you've got this nickname, sort of the punching pastor, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about your faith as well, because I know faith is something that's sort of very important to you. Just tell me a little bit about the role that plays in your everyday life and in boxing and everything, really.
I say my faith is everything to me. My faith is who I am. I say my faith is my identity. I can't really put into words how important my faith is to me. So definitely I wouldn't be boxing if not for my faith. My faith has sort of kind of got me through some of the harder times in life. It's helped me come through some of the biggest challenges I faced. So I definitely, wouldn't be where I am now in my life if not the fact of my faith. In terms of, let's say, I always get asked questions like, how did it come about? So I grew up in a Christian household, grew up attending church on a Sunday. That was a normal thing. Obviously, when I moved out of home, out of London, I moved to Nottingham for university. I quickly realised that I think it was a day that somebody asked me, like, where'd you go to church? And I couldn't answer the question other than, wow, this is just something that I knew that we do on a Sunday. And I think from that time, when I couldn't really answer that question, I began to identify that, going to church on a Sunday was just like an exercise. It was a routine. I didn't really understand why I was going or whatnot. So I think there was a long period where I sort of kind of fell off a bit. I didn't take my faith seriously. I stopped attending church for like 2 years. Became very lazy in my walk with God. And it was just like sometime in my final year, not that nothing was going wrong in my life. Things were actually going really well. But I just felt like an element, something was missing. So I remember I just sat in my room one day and I just made a decision to myself that, I'm going to take my faith in God a lot more seriously. I'm going to start going to church again. There was a Christian society at my university called Radical Youth that I got involved with. I knew about for years previously. And yeah, the rest was history, really. I felt like God just sort of kind of took me from strength to strength and just began to show me so many different things. And yeah, that was what, towards the back of end of 2014. And then, yeah, the rest was history. I got involved in my church, got involved with the leadership of my youth group. And maybe 4 years later, after being married, after then becoming ordained as a minister, I'm now a youth pastor. So that's how the nickname, the Punches Preacher, came about. I hated that nickname at first, I'm being honest. It made me sound like some WWE character. It was my manager, Jimmy Gill.
Yeah.
Even before I got ordained officially, because there was a period where after my master's, I worked in my church, in the church administration office for about a year. So even before I was ordained officially, he was calling me the Punching Preacher. And I remember every time he said it to me, I just felt like a flame in my chest. Like I was just angry because it sounded like, it just sounded like a WWE character. But after a while, I started to warm to it because I understood that the nickname, first of all, it wasn't a lie. Like I do punch and sometimes I do preach. But I understood that the nickname was bigger than me and it was more than just a nickname. For me, it was almost like a form of evangelism. It always was the reason for many interesting conversations, starting with loads of various different people I don't even know. One, maybe people from the sporting world and the boxing world, interested in sort of kind of, how someone, a man of faith, first of all, how did you get into that faith? How did that tie in with boxing? And it also opened up, people in the church to a whole different world of sport and stuff like that. I'd say two areas that maybe don't always often mix. So I felt like it's been, since then, I've seen the importance of it just being more than a nickname. I've had people approach me about advice about, their walk with God, and like people who have felt inspired to sort of kind of, talk about their faith more boldly and proudly. So I understand now that it's a lot more than just a nickname. Do you know what I mean? I feel like to a lot of people who don't know God, who may not believe in God, I sort of kind of, to them, I could be a representation of, what it means to be a Christian, and vice versa. There may be a lot of people in the church who are not open to the world of sport and stuff, who might be often in their closed communities within church, who now sort of kind of can see, many people like myself who are trying to bridge the gap between, the church and the outside world. So yeah.
Yeah, now you sort of try and bridge that gap, and also know you've got, is it the AIM Youth sort of project and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Just put that on your social media. Tell us a little bit about that and why you're sort of so passionate about that sort of work.
So passionate about working with young people. So AIM Youth was an organisation I started about 2 years ago officially. It stands for Aspire, Inspire, Motivate. It's basically all about just helping young people maximize their potential. So for many years, I've been going into schools, doing assemblies, motivational talks. A lot of the work I do now, intervention, working with kids that may have been on the verge of getting kicked out of school, mentoring, and things like that. So when did that stem from? When I was 16, I started football coaching. So I was actually, funny fact, I'm actually a qualified FA football coach. I used to scout for the Millwall Youth Academy. I worked for Tottenham for a bit, and I also coached in Canada. So I think when I'd done that for quite a number of years, I realized that actually my real passion was just working with young people and helping young people develop, and fulfill their potential. I noticed this because in football, I was never interested in working with adults or working with like the professional side. I always enjoyed like the Sunday league stuff I did with like UPO, and just more than just, teaching them how to play football, helping them develop as players, but helping them develop as people. So I ended up doing a lot of work with a lot of youth charities, National Citizen Service. And so regularly I was already doing the work of going into schools and stuff. And it was like 2 years ago where I made it more official and started to do it a lot more regularly. So that's something I'm very passionate about, because I felt like for me, growing up and where I grew up, I'm very lucky that I had, certain positive role models around me, and I had certain opportunities. So I just want to sort of kind of do my bit to help and just give back. So yeah, it just helped develop the next generation, man. So yeah, man, it's something I'm really passionate about, and yeah.
Yeah, is that a motivation on the boxing side as well? Obviously, the more successful you are and the bigger profile you get in the ring, I guess, the bigger platform you're going to have to reach people and change people's lives. Is that something that you sort of think about sometimes and motivates you a bit? Or
100%, 100%. Some of the massive ideas that I have and some of the stuff that I want to do, of course, will require a certain amount of capital. If my boxing career enables me to sort of kind of, it puts me in a position where some of these ambitions and stuff that I have with what I want to do in youth work, if that enables it, then great. But I'm not, at the same time, I don't think that's my motivation. My motivation is, like I said, I want to become a world champion, and whatever happens, happens. But regardless of whatever money I make in the sport, that's not an excuse for me not to even try and make a difference now, So I think, of course, it's also always great to make an impact on a massive scale, but as long as you're making an impact, I always say, if we all got a stone and threw it in a pond, regardless of the size of the stones that we have, whether you throw a little pebble or a massive stone, it's all going to make ripples. Do you know what I mean? Some ripples bigger than others. So, of course, I think about my career, maybe in future, putting me in a position to do a lot more. At the same time, that's not to say that with what I have now and the platform I have now, that I can't do something now, or I am doing. So yeah.
And I saw you recently became a father, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations for
Literally.
that. And
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah, I saw it on Twitter the other day. But yeah, congratulations. And just how, obviously it's early days, but how does that change your perspective as well? Because I know I haven't got any kids myself yet, but I know everyone says it obviously changes
Yeah.
your perspective massively. Like from your perspective, what's it been like so far? How's it sort of changed your outlook?
Yeah, it's been really cool, man. He's literally only what? Malachi is only what? He'll be 2 weeks on Sunday. He was actually born on my birthday, funny enough. So it was kind of cool spending my birthday in hospital. But no, it's an amazing feeling, man. In terms of like, I can't say it's something that I've really, like spent a lot of time in deep thought about in terms of the effect or anything. But for me personally, I think nothing changes really. It's just I just have one more person to look after and care about. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would say that it's kind of made me even more driven. Not to say that I wasn't driven before, but in a way, I kind of think it makes me more dangerous because I just have more people and I have more reasons and more motivations to fight for. So yeah, I think going forward in my career, like I said, it's an amazing source of motivation for me as well. And it's just great. You know what I'm saying? I've always dreamt of, starting having a family. I've been married, 3 years now? So starting a family now and stuff is just brilliant. But yeah, it's been cool. I'm still managing to get sleep here or there. Been doing my fair share of early morning or late night feeds or whatnot. But yeah, he's been cool, man. He's a proper chilled out baby as well. So I think he looks like he wants to get into boxing himself because he can't stop holding his fist by his face.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll
So, but
grow up
yeah,
with
man,
it.
it's been cool. Yeah, I hope not. I hope he goes into another sport, maybe like basketball. But if he tries to do boxing, I can't stop him if that's what he wants to do. But I'd love for him to go into something else, man. So yeah.
Yeah, and just in terms, well, I guess with that, you say you'd like him to go into something else, but you wouldn't stop him. But did that sort of
Yeah.
take you back a little bit when you think about it now? Can you sort of relate a bit more to your parents when you were boxing?
100%. I can 100% relate. 100%. And similar to my parents, whether I may like the decisions that he makes or not, at the end of the day, that's my son and I'll support him whatever he wants to do. I'd love for him to play basketball and get to the NBA so I can sit courtside at the NBA finals. That would be great. Do you know what I mean? And plus there'll be no pressure on him to achieve anything. Well, not like that, but I think, for him, if he wanted to do boxing, I'd try my best to talk him out of it. But I just wouldn't want him to feel like he had to do it just because I was a boxer. I'm not
Yeah.
that type of person, man. That, forge your own path in it. Do you know what I mean? If that's something he decides to do, great. But I would never let him do it if he felt like he was only doing it because of me or because he felt like he had to. Then yeah, I wouldn't. But definitely I can relate to my parents to see where they're coming from now. But basketball's not so bad, and I like basketball. So if that means I get to sit courtside at the NBA finals, that would be great.
Yeah, you take that. And you, I mean, you seem sort of such a calm, sort of level-headed guy. Obviously, you say how important your faith is to you. But when it comes to like the day of a fight, obviously boxers talk a lot about, fight day. What are you like on fight day? Do you change a little bit? Do you sort of, are you one of those people that's sort of pacing up and down, can't wait to get in there? Are you pretty relaxed? Like what's the sort of transformation like on fight day or fight night?
I'm probably more or less the same, Like if you see me before my fights, you wouldn't think I'm fighting. Very relaxed. I'm just a happy-go-lucky person, man. I like to have a good time. So if you see me before my fights, I'm just laughing, busting jokes with my coach. In fact, we've actually been told, by some of my previous opponents, by their coaches and stuff, that that how calm I am and how calm we are as a team is quite intimidating because I'm not one to be pacing up and down. Of course I'm in the zone, but everyone finds their zone differently. Do you know what I mean? And I think I'm most dangerous when I'm calm and I'm relaxed. So if you see me around fights, you wouldn't think I'm fighting. I'm just cool. I just do me really, man. And when I get in the ring and the bell goes, it's at the end of the day, it's boxing. It's a martial arts. To hit and not be hit. It's nothing personal. But in the ring that I'm there to win. I'm there to do a job. So yeah, I've been told that I've been told that I look like I have split personalities because I'm a nice guy outside the ring and I turn the complete opposite when I'm in the ring. But at the end of the day, it's just like, do you in it? Like, and me, I'm just a calm person. I don't try to force anything, man. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna, force like try to act a certain way before my fights or try to force myself into being in the zone. So yeah, I'm just calm, cool, relax, chill out, listen to music, chat to my people and the change room and stuff. Yeah, that's it really.
And final one from me. It's been great to chat to you. But yeah, what next? I think you got a fight coming up, haven't you? And yeah, what's the future hold in the short term for yourself?
So not looking. So obviously my next assignment is 10th of November. Should be fighting a very good opponent. Someone who's going to come to win, which is good. It's my first one in over a year. So of course, the last I boxed last September was meant to be out in December, but unfortunately the show got cancelled a few days before. Then obviously picked up an injury earlier this year, in January. Literally just got back into full training properly around like March, and then it was lockdown. So It hasn't been the most ideal year and a bit. But I think it's just this one is not trying to look too far ahead. Just getting back into the ring, getting back into the swing of things, pick up the momentum again. I feel like I had quite a good spell of momentum before, in terms of up until my last fight. So just building up the momentum again. And I'd love to get out one more time before the end of the year if that's possible. If not, then we look to picking up some belts next year. Do you know what I mean? I just want to win titles. So that's the plan really. Going forward, long term is whatever belt is available and stuff. I want to be fighting for. I just want to keep progressing my career. I want to keep moving up. So that's why I trust my management, my team, promoters. I just focus on my training, and they also I trust them to make the best decisions for my career. But not thinking too far ahead. I've got a job to do on the 10th of November. So once I get that out of the way, then we can see what's happening next. I think the first one is just sort of kind of get back into the swing of things again, bust off the cobwebs and just pick up the momentum again. So yeah.
Nice one. Cheers, Derek. That was great. Really enjoyed speaking to you, and all the best in November.